everybody, Lord Tremendous here. Got another battle report here for you. This is battle report number 30. It's a 2,000 point battle. Tis I, Lord Tremendous of the Varangur, versus Walkin' Panoob of the Brotherhood. Yes, this is my usual opponent, and this is an interesting battle report to say the least. And speaking of which, I'm sorry it's been over a month, well, just about a month now, since my last one. I have been on vacation, I've been running around, I've been very distracted. Not a whole lot of computer time for doing battle reports, and I apologize. I am going to try to get back on track and do more and more often. Long story short, I'm trying to finish up a book. So, yes. It sounds stupid when I say it like that. Anyway, with that out of the way, I apologize once again, and sit back, relax, and get ready to see how this battle report goes. Here's my list, and it's obviously changed from my 2,500 point list, which was actually very difficult to change up. I still have my king on a chimera, Lord Tremendous. He's got Brutal and the Chant of Hate. I've got my Magus, Elizabeth, and she's still mounted with Famulus, Drain Life, and the Inspiring Talisman. Some kits I kept just because I really like them, and I need them. It's how I, know how to play the army. And then, of course, I have my Scald with the Warbow of Kaba. I did lose Blackshade, my chieftain, because I had to cut 500 points. It doesn't seem like a lot, but I had to cut 1/5 of my army, and it was hard. Then I've got my Magus Conclave still, and they still have Elite, because, honestly, having one to clean stuff up is very useful. I have a Bloodsworn Horde. They have two-handed weapons, Fury, and the Brew of Sharpness. I like them. I like having 25 attacks that hit on 3s, usually. Fury on that unit is great, too. The Sons of Korgan Regiment with Fury and the Brew of Haste, so they're speed 6 instead of speed 5, and getting to the fight a little bit faster. And I also have a Tundra Wolf Troop with the Blade of Slashing, because, believe it or not, I cut over 500 points from my list, had 5 points left over, and this was the only unit that didn't have an item. So I was like, screw it, I'll throw it on there. The rest of my army consists of a second unit of Tundra Wolves, just a troop, and honestly they're just chaff like the other one. I've got a mounted Sons of Korgan Regiment with Fury and Blessing of the Gods, and a second mounted Sons of Korgan Regiment with Fury and the Potion of the Caterpillar. I really like my mounted Sun units. They're incredible. I am toying with tweaking this list a little bit, maybe dropping a lot of the magic items so that I can take my little troop of Reavers again. I don't know. I miss the Reavers. The true Valdez are the truest of Valdezes. But again, that's up in the air. I don't know yet if I want or even could fit them in with everything that I want. But that's the list for this battle report, and you'll see how it works in just a little bit. That's going to do it for my list, though. I'm going to play some music, post my opponent's list. Feel free to pause it whenever you like, see what he took. Here's deployment, and it just felt like so much was missing. I'm missing my monster, I'm missing Blackshade, I'm missing my Reavers, I'm looking for my units, but all fairness, my opponent seems to have a smaller army too, so it is what it is. On the left flank there, I've got a unit of Tundra Wolves, and right next to them is Elizabeth. The idea there was just they were going to try to hold off the knights on the left flank there. Just hold the dogs were going to sacrifice themselves nobly, and Elizabeth was going going to fire shots at him, maybe even wavering the unit once or twice, which would have been glorious. Meanwhile, I've got my Caterpillar pathfinding knights in the center there. They're going to go through the forest in the middle to go after whatever infantry or whatever presents itself first. They can put a lot of damage out, hitting on 3s, so I might be able to break the little regiments in the first round of combat. That's the hope, anyway. I've got a Scald in between the knights and my big old horde brick Bloodsworn. They're going to fire forward and go after whatever they can. With a 22-24 nerve, I'm not worried about anything that's coming after them. On top of the hill there is my Magus Conclave. Next to the, or on the right of the hill there, and below it are my other unit of mounted sons, and they're going to crash into his knights and hopefully kill them before they kill me. Backing up my knights is my second unit of Tundra Wolves with the Blade of Slashing, and my Sons of Korgan regiment, which is almost complete. And, of course, holding them in place will be Lord Tremendous, the King on a Chimera. Like I said, the plan was to go across, because we both play pretty one-dimensional armies. We're going to slam into each other, beat the ever-loving crap out of each other, and may the best nerve check win. Here's top of 1 after movement, and I didn't get to go first. My opponent went first. He comes up conservatively, and that is it. He doesn't, I mean, he's got a handful of spells, but it's mostly like Bane Chant and stuff like that. I think maybe Weakness is in there, or Martyr's Prayer, but nothing offensive that he can fire off at me. So that's it for his turn. Here I go at bottom of 1 after movement, and I come up throwing out my bait for the most part. On the right flank there, my dragon comes up right behind the hill there. He can see over it because the hill's only like height 1 or 2. Meanwhile, the dragon's height 4, so he can see, I'm sorry, the King on a Chimera. He can see over the hill no problem, and with a 20-inch charge, he can put some real threat downrange. I do move my Tundra Wolves up, daring his knights to charge. Anything that charges my dogs is going to die. Yes, the counter charge would be horrible, but I positioned my Bloodsworn in such a way that they should be able to countercharge anything on my right side there in the flank, but it's making it look like I'm coming straight forward for all of his infantry. We'll see how that all works out. Meanwhile, my second unit of mounted sons are hanging over just behind the forest. I can't see through it, but if anything comes down that little pathway like they're going after the Bloodsworn, they can charge. Even if they touch trees, they'll be fine. So I think I'm set up pretty good there. On the left flank, I hold back a little bit. Elizabeth can fire off a lightning bolt without the dogs having to sacrifice themselves yet, and with his knights moving so conservatively, I don't have to sacrifice them forward just yet. So that's it for my movement. In the Pansy Phase, my Conclave fires off a shot at his little unit of infantry right there. Just wanted to put some wounds on him. Thought I would do better than 1. I do 1. He passes his nerve check, and Iron Resolve heals the wound. So it's like the shooting phase never happened. Ugh. Elizabeth does fire off her lightning bolt at the knights and fails to wound. So very ineffective Pansy Phase. Reeling from that, here's top of 2 after movement, and the Brotherhood are coming forward. So on the right flank there, one of his units of knights takes the bait, which is glorious. He also brings up his elite unit of knights, the Black Knights there. They're well within range of my King and a Chimera. So I'm thinking that his knights slamming into my Tundra Wolves, they're going to murder my Tundra Wolves, and the Sons of Korgan and the Mounted Sons of Korgan are going to countercharge and murder the unit of knights. So I'm fine with that. In fact, I'm toying with sending my Mounted Sons on the right flank into the unit of knights that charge my Bloodsworn. Because I didn't see that coming. I thought I was far enough away. No, I misjudged that big time. So his second unit of knights slamming into my Bloodsworn shocked me, to say the least. His infantry come in to back up the knight's charge, which was also interesting. A couple of them are touching the forest so that my other unit, my unpainted unit of mounted sons, could charge them. I'm up in the air about what I want to do with that. I haven't decided yet. Meanwhile, his knights on the left flank just kind of reposition slightly, but don't come any closer. So now I've got more time to just free shot them. We'll see what I do over here, but yeah, it was an interesting charge turn and everything. It threw me off a little bit, but I think I'm still in pretty good position, and that's it for his movement. Nothing really happens in his Pansy Phase, so we go straight into combat, and he starts off with his blue knights beating down on my Bloodsworn, and these guys roll out of the box doing 10 wounds to my Bloodsworn. I didn't expect him to do that many wounds. I am so happy my Scald is right there. Luckily for me, his high rolling goes away. My Bloodsworn are perfectly fine, and he backs off an inch. Wow, I was not expecting 10 wounds. His White Knights beat down my Tundra Wolves on the right flank there, putting 8 wounds onto them, which should be enough to break them, let's be honest. And it does exactly that. The Tundra Wolves disappear from the table, and the Knights reposition themselves to kind of face the oncoming countercharge, which should be interesting, and it's definitely coming. So we go over here to bottom of 2 after movement, and I try to get a little clever. My Tundra Wolves back up and angle differently, because I start to think, you know what, I don't need to charge into his infantry yet. Let me clear out his heavy hitters, his knights, and then maybe I've got something here. With his knights on the left flank backing off, my dogs back off a little bit. Let him come forward. He can't charge my Tundra Wolves where they're at, so he has to come forward to do anything. There's a full turn here where he's not going to really utilize half of his army. His infantry stuck up in the forest and stuff like that, I'm not worried about them charging into the Bloodsworn, because hopefully the Bloodsworn's going to finish off the Blue Knights this turn, and then they can back up, and then his infantry won't be able to get a hold of me, and if they do, I'll send the Mounted Sons in, no big deal. I move Elizabeth over there to use Drain Life on the Knight so that she can heal some of the damage off of the Bloodsworn, hopefully at least 3 wounds. And then on the right flank over there, I send the Sons and the Mounted Sons into his White Knights, and I send Lord Tremendous into his Black Knights. The idea here is the combined Sons of Corrigan slamming into his White Knights should be enough to murder them. I'll turn and face the Mounted Sons towards the center of the table to go after his infantry or his knights, whatever's still around. It'll be beautiful flank shots, and hopefully be enough to finish off his entire center, because just bounce, bounce, bounce. It'll make it so that he has to turn to face them, and then my other unit of Mounted Sons will hit them in the flank. It's going to be glorious. It's going to be a pincher movement. I'm excited. This all hinges, of course, on Lord Tremendous being able to hold off his elite Black Knight unit long enough for the Sons of Corrigan infantry to charge in there and help him finish them off. So it's a gamble, but that's the way I play, and that's it for movement. During the Pansy Phase, Elizabeth fires off Drain Life on the Knights and is able to put 3 wounds on them, healing 3 wounds off the Bloodsworn, which is huge. Really, really huge. And that's why I love her. That's why I absolutely love her. And then my Magus Conclave just kind of fires a pot shot off at his Martyr, the little bastard sitting there just behind the unit of infantry. They got cover. It is an individual. I was still able to hit, and I got a single wound through on him. He's perfectly fine. He's not going to run away or anything, but he's bleeding, and I feel good about that. With the Pansy Phase over, we go over here into combat, and my Bloodsworn flub spectacularly, only doing 9 wounds. Out of 25 attacks, I was only able to do 9 wounds to these guys. Hitting on 3s, wounded on 3s. That sucked. However, 12 wounds on these guys is still 12 wounds, and I'm able to waver the unit. I find out at this point that they have Headstrong, but still, they're wavered. They're not going to have Thunder's Charge. Maybe this will still work out for me. And if not, I've got my Mounted Sons to help clean up the remains. Combat over here, my Mounted Sons and Infantry Sons do 17 wounds to the White Knights, basically breaking them on damage alone. The White Knights are eviscerated for what they did to my Tundra Wolves. My Mounted Sons cut to the center of the table, change face and look at the center of the table, and my Infantry Sons move forward. I think they go forward 3 or 4 inches to get closer to the Black Knights that Lord Tremendous may or may not be dealing with this turn. So on the right flank, everything's going according to plan. So Lord Tremendous activates, and with re-rolling ones to hit and to wound because of Vicious and Elite, I'm able to put 9 wounds on his elite unit of Black Knights, which is massive. With Brutal, it's basically 10 wounds. I roll his nerve check, and I roll 1 less than I needed to rout him, and I end up wavering instead. That kind of sucks. Lord Tremendous is going to catch some flack next turn, because these guys are headstrong as well, and provided he can roll a 3 or higher, they're going to countercharge him, and that's going to be bad. At least they're disordered, though, so that's something. They won't get Thunderous Charge. So, with the fight's over, here's top of 3 after movement, and the Brotherhood is not out of this fight. They're just trying to catch back up to it, I guess. So, right off the bat, let me get this out of the way. Both units of Knights that were headstrong fail their headstrong rolls. He rolls a 1 for the Blue Knights and a 2 for the Black Knights. Yeah, I couldn't believe it either. So that was huge. In desperation and shock, he sends his horde brick of infantry into my Bloodsworn because the knights are no longer countercharging. Neither regiment unit of infantry can get in there, so he sends one of them towards where the mounted sons are, like I'm taking that bait, and he sends the other one towards where the dogs are and the other unit of mounted sons are. Again, I don't think I'm taking that bait. His knights come down to get in the way of the Tundra Wolves to start threatening them, and on the right flank there's really nothing for him left to do. So that's it for his movement. As you can see, it's kind of a traffic jam now. Should be interesting to see the way it goes. In the Pansy Phase, his character does the Martyr's Prayer on the Blue Knights, heals 3 wounds off them, taking their total down to 9. So, damn it. And then we dive into combat. He starts off with this one with the knight, or with his big old horde of infantry. They slam into my Bloodsworn, but they're only able to do about 5 wounds to him. Being hindered and his dice turning on him was huge. My Bloodsworn go up to 12 wounds, which is something they can easily deal with. I think he rolls like a 7 or something like that, bringing the total up to 19, but with the 22, 24, the Bloodsworn are just starting to get excited. He backs off an inch, and guess where the Bloodsworn are going next turn? Yeah, that really just worked out for me. His 2 units of knights failing their headstrong check was huge. Alright, with that done, we go over here to bottom of 3 after movement, and I'd be a fool not to take advantage of a stroke of luck, so I'm not a fool? I don't know. On the right flank there, Lord Tremendous and the Sons of Korgan go into the Black Knight units to try to finish them off. My Mounted Sons charge into the flank of his Blue Knights to finish them off. My Bloodsworn and my other unit of Mounted Sons slam into his Horde Brick of Infantry to finish them off. And then my Dogs, in order to try to keep his White Knights on the left flank from going into my flank, charge into his unit of Knights just to make it so that he can't get around him. Elizabeth stays where she's at. She's going to throw out some damage onto his infantry unit in order to heal up the Bloodsworn unit a little bit. My Scald stays right where he's at because he's too stupid to do anything else. The Magus Conclave's happy where they're at, and that's it for movement. In the Pansy Phase, Elizabeth fires off Drain Life on the Blue Knights just to make sure that they're gone. But unfortunately, she's only able to do a single wound to them. So she heals the Bloodsworn for 1 wound, which is better than nothing, and puts the single wound back onto the Blue Knights. It would have been a lot better if it had been any more than just 1, but I guess it could have been 0, so who am I to complain? My Conclave takes careful aim at his little martyr guy again, just because he's a better target than anything else. He's got cover, he's got individual, I'm still able to hit him, and I do 3 wounds to him, because my Conclave is a madman. Or a group of madmen. So we go into combat, and I start off with my Tundra Wolves, because why not? I didn't really expect them to do anything, and they blow my mind. I forgot about the Blade of Slashing, and I was still able to put 4 wounds with the Tundra Wolves onto his White Knights. I don't know what's even happening anymore in this game. I don't so much as even waver him, of course, but putting 4 wounds on him was mind-blowing, and the dogs back up, and even they're a little stunned by what they just did. In this combat, my Bloodsworn and my Mounted Sons don't do an extremely good job. I'm only able to put 12 wounds on his Horde Brick of Infantry. I was really expecting to do more, and only 12. Not gonna be enough. However, my opponent looks at the table, is kind of disgusted with the situation. He looks at the situation with the Knights. We go into the Mounted Sons into his Blue Knights. I do 5, 10, 15 wounds to him, and he goes, alright, you know what, let's reset. This game is over, you won, I concede the game, let's reset and play another one. So, there's the end of the first game, and there's no way I'm going to take a month-long hiatus and just end it here, so we played another game, and it's part of this one. So I win this first one, my opponent conceded in turn 3, and you are lucky enough to get a double game, a back-to-back battle report, all in the same video, because this one ended in turn 3. It was just with the 2 units of Knights doing the headstrong failures, the Blue Knights being removed, my Mounted Son's going to be able to go forward and deal with his other infantry and everything. My dog's doing 4 wounds to his knights on the left flank. Lord Tremendous and the Sons of Corrigan on foot about to take out his Black Knights. This game was only going to go one way. So he concedes it, and we proceed to re-rack and reset for game 2. So, after playing God a little bit and resurrecting all of our fallen units, we reset, and here's deployment for round 2. Not much of a difference. The terrain all stayed the same. Everything's more or less the same. On the left flank there, I've got a unit of Tundra Wolves with the Sons of Corrigan right behind them. The idea is to go forward and bait once again. Hey, it worked last time. Why wouldn't it work this time? Elizabeth is pretty much in the same position to do the exact same thing she did this time or last time, because instead of 2 units of White Knights, the Blue Knights and a unit of White Knights are on the left flank. So it's basically the same setup. My Mounted Sons with the Caterpillar are right across from the Forest again, because the Forest won't affect them, and they could probably deal with the infantry better than anything else. The Bloodsworn, the Scald, and my Magnus Conclave are in the same position more or less, because there's nowhere else for them. I'd rather have them. My second unit of Mounted Sons and the Tundra Wolves on the right flank with Lord Tremendous, they're going to do exactly what happened last turn. It's the same armies pretty much lined up across from each other in the same way, but we're going to try again and see if his guys will pass their headstrong checks this time and give us a better game. So that's it for deployment 2. So this is correct. The caption of bottom of 1 after movement is correct. There is no picture at the top of 1 because my opponent went first and didn't do anything. He goes, okay, I go, he won the roll off to go first. He's like, I'm going first, and I'm done. I'm not moving. He didn't do anything. So he went first, top of 1, didn't do anything. So this is bottom of 1 after movement, and I come thundering forward because now I can set the tone. So I'm coming forward. I've set out my Tundra Wolves for bait once again. Obvious bait, I know, but bait nonetheless. I send my Mounted Sons with the Caterpillar into the forest to touch into the forest so they can see through it. That way I can put a lot of pressure in the center of the board there. I've got my Bloodsworn, my Sons of Corrigan on foot, Elizabeth, and the other unit of Mounted Sons on right flank, all putting pressure in the middle. So if my opponent moves or anything like that, I can countercharge him and hopefully get a hold of him and murder his face. On the right flank there, I've got Lord Tremendous getting ready to either swoop into one of the units of knights or get around him and maybe get some rear and flank charges onto his big infantry bricks, or the unit of Black Knights because they're super elite and super dangerous. But that's my plan, and that's it for movement. In the Pansy Phase, the only thing that happens is my Magus Conclave fires at his White Knights and puts a single wound on him. Needless to say, they don't rout. I know, I was as shocked as you are. So here's top of 2 after movement, and incoming. Okay, so you got like a little cascading effect. His White Knights go after the dogs, baiting me to go after, because he knows he's going to kill the dogs. But he wants his Blue Knights to slam into my Sons of Corrigan, which I might give him, I might not. But here's the thing. My Mounted Sons with the Caterpillar can see the flank of those White Knights, so if they don't get out of my charge arc, I'm going to hit him in the flank, turn and look at his infantry, and dare them to charge me. His Blue Knights won't be able to get into him because I'm going to send the Sons of Corrigan into him, so I might have a little plan on the left flank here. It's another gamble, but again, that's how I play. It's what I do. It's really all I know. In the center there, in the middle, I got in the center, the rest of his stuff kind of does a weird domino effect type of thing. He's got a cascading formation going on. Most of his knights stay back because they're afraid of Lord Tremendous, the Bloodsworn, the Mounted Sons, and they don't want to take the bait of the dogs, which is fine. I'll send the dogs into them. So it's really interesting. Right now, the only real combat we have is the White Knights into the Tundra Wolves on the left side there, and that's it for movement. So we dive straight into combat because, again, we're very one-dimensional armies. And he starts off with his, he does his White Knights into my Tundra Wolves, putting 8 wounds on them, which should be enough to finish them off. They're only 11-13s. And yeah, he face melts them and is able to get far enough forward that I can't remember exactly, I'll have to look forward in the slides, but I think he actually got past my Mounted Sons in the forest, so my Infantry Sons will have to deal with these insurgents. That brings us to bottom of 2 after movement, and I don't want to do a lot of these charges, but I don't see any other way out of it. So I roll the dice, I gamble, because honestly, that's what I do. I just hope it works out. On the left flank there, the Sons of Korgan on foot charge into the White Knights that murdered my Tundra Wolves in order to try to avenge them. Elizabeth moves into position to try to damage him a little bit or go after his character in the middle. I hadn't decided which yet. My other unit of Mounted Sons with the Caterpillar Potion slam into his infantry regiment there. The hope is that I hit them hard enough to blow through them. If I don't, they're dead. Is what it is. What can you do? The Bloodsworn and the Mounted Sons are held off by his unit of knights. There's 3 units of knights up there, and I can't let anything get close enough to catch all those charges, so I have to back my Bloodsworn up a little bit. Maybe they can still charge through if my sons, my Mounted Sons that are into the infantry, if they ended up getting bogged down there and countercharged, that would be really bad. But maybe they could countercharge after they murder my knights and clean up there. We'll have to see. My Tundra Wolves charge into his White Knights, and then Lord Tremendous fires 20 inches straight forward to try to get around the back there and get some flanks and rear charges in future turns of the game. I'm getting a little desperate. This isn't going as smooth for me as I had hoped, but I'm trying to make the best out of it, and that's it for movement. In the Pansy Phase, Elizabeth is able to put 3 wounds onto the Knights. She used Drain Life because it was just more dice to throw at them. There was no one to heal because nobody had taken damage that was still alive. So there's 3 wounds on the White Knights that the Sons just charged. I'm feeling pretty good about that. Turns out it was definitely the right move because my sons, maybe they're rusty, maybe they're just jealous because they don't have horses, I'm not really sure, but they're only able to do 6 wounds to this unit, bringing their total up to 9. So 9 is a respectable number. Not everybody's got Varangur nerve checks, but 9 should have been closer to 19 considering I just threw 20 attacks at him needing 3s and 3s. So that hurt. That hurt a lot. Luck kicks in, though, and I roll way out of the box. His character is just far enough away that he can't get the Inspiring, and I rout the unit. The Knights are gone. The Sons of Korgan on foot turn to face the Blue Knights, and now I just gotta hope that this luck keeps on coming. And it does. The Knights do amazing. I do 11 wounds to this unit. I'm super thrilled about that. And then I roll a 3 for their nerve check. 14 isn't going to be enough to so much as waver this unit. And yeah, my Mounted Sons did wonderfully, but they got caught, and now they're screwed. They're going to catch a Horde Brick to the flank. That's why it's a gamble. You roll the dice and you hope, and sometimes you win, and sometimes you get charged in the flank. Oh well. In this final combat, my Tundra Wolves, even hindered, are able to slip 2 wounds through on his White Knights. The dogs are just knocking it out of the park today, and I couldn't be prouder. Needless to say, though, the Knights are perfectly fine. The dogs back up an inch, and they're probably going to get smeared next turn. But with the dogs doing as well as they've done these past few rounds of combat, it kind of got me thinking, I wonder what a 2,000-point list the Tundra Wolves with some characters with Inspiring would do. You would outnumber your opponent, to say the least, but, you know, having like 15 to 18 units Tundra Wolves on the table might be interesting. I don't think I'll ever do it, but again, it would just kind of be an interesting list to see arrayed across from you, especially if they were able to kill off some of your bigger units. Kind of be fun. Alright, so here's top of 3 after movement, and here's where we see how well the gamble worked out. So on the left flank there is Blue Knights charge my Sons of Korgan on foot, as well as that character that was up there just kind of standing around, so that'll be interesting. In the center there is Horde Brick Infantry and the infantry regiment that I charge, countercharge, and charge my Mounted Sons with the Caterpillar Potion. They're about to catch almost 100 attacks. They're not long for this world. On the right flank there, the White Knights countercharge the dogs. The Black Knights, the White Knights, and the regiment of infantry move around to deal with the Knights and the Bloodsworn, and that's really it for his movement. So this could go either way really, really fast. We jump straight into combat, and he starts off with the Blue Knights and his character. They roll their attacks, and as you can see, they do 10 wounds to my Sons of Korgan. They should be able to survive this. Elizabeth is there with her Inspiring Talisman, shaking at them just in case. My opponent rolls just high enough to waver my unit, but with Fury, I'm perfectly fine. I'm going to be disordered, but I don't have Thunderous Charge or anything like that, so honestly, it's like they passed it. They're basically fearless, and I'm thrilled. So next turn, I'm going to get some sweet revenge. And maybe Elizabeth will be able to heal him a little bit. In this combat right here, my opponent, now his Horde Brick is hindered because he touched a forest. The unit, of course, that countercharged him was not. They were disordered, but again, it's not really going to matter. They only do 12 wounds, which is actually a lot, all things considered, but it should have been a lot worse. My opponent's dice start to really go left field at this point. But my unit has taken 12 wounds. They're a 15, 17, or a 16, 18, one of the two. So it's iffy. It's really iffy, but I don't have anything inspiring close enough to matter. So it's one roll, and they gone. It wasn't even close. I think he rolled a 10. So, yeah, the Mounted Sons, they did wonderfully, but that regiment of infantry just weren't ready to go yet. They were kicking ass for their lord, and it worked. They took 11 wounds, held, and then their buddies came in, and together they smashed my knights. Very well played. What can you do? The knights here, countercharging my dogs, do the magic number of 8 wounds to them, which has been very consistent. Every time the dogs have been on the receiving end of combat, they've taken 8 wounds, so Tremendous is next to him, so he does get 2 rolls at it, provided he doesn't just waver them. And he proceeds to roll a 4. They're 11-13. My dogs are wavered. They're not gone yet. The knights are held up. Tundra Wolves are amazing. Seriously, I'm really considering putting together a list of just the dogs. I probably won't. It probably won't go past Easy Army, but just imagine seeing 15 units of Tundra Wolves across from you, and then they actually start doing well. Yeah, this really opens up a lot of options for Lord Tremendous now. I'm very excited about this result. Alright, so somehow I survived most of that. Here's bottom of 3 after movement, and I'm going in. So my Sons of Korgan infantry go after his character, and everybody knows why. I kill the character, I can countercharge as long as I move an inch, or I can thunder forward an inch. He's an individual. I can hit the blue knights as well, and possibly get a 2 for 1. My other unit of Mounted Sons charge into the White Knights in the water, because why not? I want to go in there. I think maybe I can break them, and it might be fun. Lord Tremendous charges into the flank of the White Knights that wavered my dogs last turn. The hope there is to kind of pincer move the Black Knights. If the Black Knights are able to get into the Mounted Sons in the flank, I'm going to lose them. But it's either I charge him or he double charges me. I might as well put some wounds downrange before my unit is gone. The Bloodsworn stand by to get ready to charge whatever makes themselves available. If they get charged by that little regiment of infantry, I don't care. I mean, nothing like an appetizer just before the fight, and that's really it for my movement. In the Pansy Phase, Elizabeth uses Drain Life on the Blue Knights, but is only able to do a single wound, so she heals the Sons of Korgan infantry unit for 1 wound. Better than nothing. I wanted more. The Conclave finally decides to join this fight and fires off a volley at the Blue Knights as well and do 3 more wounds to them, bringing their total up to 4, which will be very useful if I can break that individual with the Sons of Korgan and then charge into the Blue Knights. That would be extremely useful in seeing that I rout both units this turn, which I kind of need to. So, unexpected bonus, my shots cause the Blue Knights to become wavered. Yeah. Interesting, it opens up some options, but completely unexpected, completely unneeded, I guess, but yeah, the Blue Knights are basically 0 threat to me for the most part now. I don't know if they have Headstrong or not. They might not, I don't remember. But yeah, just an interesting situation that came up from shooting, which has almost never happened before. So we get into the real part of the game, the combat phase, and I start with my Sons of Korgan infantry unit, and they do 9 wounds to this individual on a horse. 9 wounds to an individual is almost always going to break them. 2 nerve checks later, the individual is no longer with us, and I move forward, charge forward into the Blue Knights. A nice little 1-2 punch. I decide to go after them because if they're wavered, I'm taking that as a sign that they want to be routed, and I want to give them what they want. My Sons of Korgan, sticking to their theme of 9 wounds, provides 9 wounds to the Blue Knights, bringing their total up to 13. Also, keeping with their long-standing tradition of routing units, they take out the Blue Knights just like they took out the individual. The 2-for-1 combo works. They turn to face the center of the table, and yeah, this fight's just getting started. So my mounted Sons of Korgan were definitely cut from a different cloth than my infantry Sons of Korgan, because they are hindered, but they still only needed 4s to hit. And they're able to do 4 wounds out of 20 attacks to the White Knights. I was disappointed. My Knights bounce off of his a solid inch, and the infantry, White Knights, and Black Knights are laughing manically at their pathetic attack. You know what? The only solace I take from this is knowing that my mounted sons are about to get the beatdown that they so righteously deserve. In this combat over here, however, Lord Tremendous in the flank of the White Knights that couldn't break the Tundra Wolves, yeah, that was glorious. He is able to straight murder that unit. He does about 12 to 15 wounds to him. My opponent just picks him up off the table. I roll the nerve checks, they're gone, and he just kind of angles himself slightly to look more centered to the board so that he can get a flank or a rear on something next turn. Because there's going to be a real clump of guys beating down my mounted sons in a minute. Alright, so I did my best there, with the exception of the Mounted Sons, and this is top of 4 after movement, and yeah. So his infantry on the left side center more or less get ready to see where my Sons of Korgan are going. But on the right flank, not so much. The Black Knights, the White Knights, and the Regiment of Infantry all go into the Mounted Sons to give them the proper beatdown that they've earned. That's not great. I'm not thrilled about it, but at the same time, they deserve this, so I'm okay with it. And my King on a Chimera, Lord Tremendous, is going to be able to capitalize on this somewhere. Not to mention the Bloodsworn are going to be able to get a good charge off on something, and the Sons of Korgan should get something. So I'm not out of this fight yet, but there's not going to be any knights at the victory parties. So well, I might be counting my chickens a little early, but that's the way I feel, and that's it for his movement. There's no subtlety in this turn at all. We go straight to combat, and he proceeds to put the biggest beatdown on my mounted sons that they've ever received. What is that? 17, 23, 28 wounds total into my mounted sons, and damn. The level of fluid in that little water feature just increased by about 20%. It's all bad. Needless to say, they crumble, and there's really nothing I can do about it. However, my opponent does something I wasn't expecting. His White Knights turn to face Lord Tremendous, which is perfectly fine, but his Black Knights stay right where they're at, and they move forward an inch. His infantry look down towards the Bloodsworn, and he's exposed his rear of his elite knights to Lord Tremendous. I mean, I'm literally looking directly at them. My dogs will be able to move next turn 9 inches, get out of the way, and Lord Tremendous is going to sweep into their rear. There's no way they survive that. So, yeah. There's a chance here. There's a real solid chance. So here's bottom of 4 after movement, and I capitalize the best way I can. On the left flank there, the Sons of Korgan charge into his regiment unit that's carrying 11 wounds because they have to die. In the middle, my Bloodsworn charge into his regiment of infantry because they've got to get out of the way, so I can either go after his Horde Brick or his White Knights or whatever, because Lord Tremendous goes right into the rear of the Black Knights. 30 attacks. I'm going to be hitting on 4s because I'm going to be hindered because I did end up touching the feature. But hitting on 4s, re-rolling 1s, wounding on 2s, re-rolling 1s, that should be enough to break just about anything. So I'm feeling pretty confident there. My dogs obviously move out of the way and turn to face the White Knights just to give them something to think about, and Elizabeth goes behind the Sons of Korgan in order to try to put out some more drain life and heal them up. That is pretty much it for my movement. In the Pansy Phase, my Magus Conclave is able to draw a line of sight to his Horde Brick, and I got to start putting wounds on him eventually. He's got cover, so I need to hit him on 5s. I do hit him, and I do 2 wounds to the unit, which isn't terrible. Again, I like having the single unit Conclave on the table. Still can't get my mind around the idea of 3. And then I have Elizabeth fire a lightning bolt at his character over here because she's height 2, he's height 2, he's going to have cover, but she hits him with a couple of them, does 2 wounds, and is able to waver his ass. So, things are looking up for the Varangur. That brings us to combat, and my Sons of Korgan, staying to that tradition of 9s, does 9 more wounds to this unit that was already carrying like 11, although some have been healed by the little martyr back there. I think he might have 13 on him by now. Or after this 9 wounds anyway, I think his total is 13. My sons turn to face the Horde Brick and everything like that after routing that regiment that took the charge from the Mounted Sons. And, yeah, the hits keep on coming. We're going to try to table these Brotherhood bastards for what they did to my Tundra Wolves. So, in this combat right here, I know it looks like the regiment was picked up because it was. My opponent was a little pessimistic and thought after 14 wounds that unit was going to be easily routed. I thought so as well. But after rolling the dice, no, I'm able to waver the unit, not rout them. So he puts the unit back, and I move back about an inch. I back up into my Scald, and he backs up the rest of the way to make it an inch between us. So, yeah, remember, fight the pessimism, because your unit might just get wavered. In this combat over here, Tremendous does about 21 wounds to the Black Knights. With Brutal, it's to like 22. They easily are routed, and then I just kind of tilt him a little bit so that he can face off against the Knights. If they go after my dogs, fine. If not, Tremendous is going to slam into the Knights or the infantry or whatever I need to slam into in order to seal my victory. So yeah, that charge into the rear of his elite Knights pretty much... I don't want to say it sealed the victory for me, but it definitely helped solidify it. That was huge. And you don't ignore Lord Tremendous. You don't show him your back. You just can't do that. Alright, so this, even though it's looking pretty good, this game is far from over. Here's top of 5 after movement, and his unit's charge into my Bloodsworn. I believe his regiment might have been headstrong, I can't remember, but they didn't pass it, and so his Horde Brick goes into my Horde Brick one-on-one, and he's going to be hindered, so... that actually looks pretty good for me. His White Knights charge into the Tundra Wolves that are already at 8 wounds, so yeah, they're probably dead. And his little characters just kind of mosey around a little bit to try to get off some Martyr's Prayer and maybe some Bane Chant, and that's really it for his movement. We dive straight into the combat, and yeah, his White Knights are able to put another 4 wounds or so. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 6 wounds, I'm sorry, 6 more wounds, even though they're hindered, into the dogs. Maybe they're not hindered, maybe they have Pathfinder. Either way, dogs are now at 14 wounds, and that's well past their rout check, nerve check. So, unless you roll Snake Eyes, they're gone. He does not roll Snake Eyes at all, and yes, the dogs die a horrible death, but they really hung in there. They were the bane of the White Knights, and now Lord Tremendous has a beautiful charge into them if he wants it, but I don't know, I might send him into that infantry flank right there, because that just looks so much more tempting. But we'll see, The White Knights are currently well out of position, and I can deal with them later, so we'll see. His Horde Brick's combat versus my Horde Brick, he does 7 wounds, mainly due to being hindered. Needless to say, with their 22-24, they're perfectly fine. He backs off an inch, and my Bloodsworn will see him in just a minute. Alright, here it comes. We're winding down. Here's bottom of 5 after movement, and we just collapse in the center. The Sons of Korgan and the Bloodsworn slam into his Horde Brick. Lord Tremendous ignores the White Knights and slams into the flank of his regimented infantry. Lizadeth moves up to go after the character that she wavered last turn. The Magnus Conclave takes aim at those characters as well. The Scald runs up behind the Bloodsworn just in case something happens that turns things left field, and that's it for movement. We're going for blood. So, in the Pansy Phase, Elizabeth fires off a lightning bolt at the little martyr guy, the infantry character, because he's just got more wounds on him, and I'm only able to do a single wound to him, which is enough, I think, but I would have preferred 4, obviously, but I'm greedy. The Magus Conclave, pretty confident that that infantry is going to break on its own, fires its shots at the mounted individual back there and does 2 wounds to him, which will force the panic or the nerve check on him as well. So there's a chance I'm going to take care of his 2 remaining characters this turn, which would be glorious. And it works. The nerve check for both of the characters sees them routed off the table, and so his inspiring and his support spells and everything like that are now gone. So with a little luck, by the end of this turn, I'll have the game wrapped up pretty tight. And fingers crossed, because I've snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory many, many times. We go into combat, and yeah, it's exactly what you think was going to happen. Even hindered, the Sons of Korgan and the Bloodsworn weren't hindered, but they're able to just mulch his Horde Brick, murder them. We were going to make the grass grow beautifully with all their blood in that little forested area, and then they both turn to face the rest of the enemy, which is kind of in the center to the right of the table. It's beautiful. Then, only because I know my opponent would respect this, because he'd do the same to me if he could. He has done the same to me. Lord Tremendous finishes off his regiment of infantry and then turns to face his remaining unit of White Knights. This isn't personal, it's just business. Not a whole lot left, but the game's still going on. Here's top of 6 after movement. The only thing that happens in the entire turn is that his knights turn and get about an inch away from Lord Tremendous to face him. That's it. We then go to the bottom of 6, and Lord Tremendous charges into the knights that are carrying 4 wounds. He's going to be hindered, but he rerolls 1s to hit and wound. He is a wrecking ball of doom, and he's got a afternoon appointment, so he wants to get this over with, and that is completely it for my movement. I don't bother with anything else. There is no mercy in this dojo. We go into combat, and Lord Tremendous, although hindered, he's still able to put 6 wounds through on the White Knights, bringing their total up to 10. With Brutal, it's like an 11. I easily roll high enough in order to rout the unit, and the knights drown in the blood of my knights inside the water feature, which is, honestly, probably one of the most horrible things that's ever happened in Kings of War. Let's be honest. And there it is. There's the end of Game 2. Needless to say, Varanguard's still on the table. The Brotherhood have been removed. This was a much better game than the first one, a lot closer, but I had some really good lucky strikes and was able to capitalize on them, and my opponent's dice were just against him the entire game. So it was fun. Definitely some good games. 2,000 points goes by really, really quick, and it was really difficult to drop 500 points from my previous list. But still a damn good game, still a damn fun game, and this was brutal, and those are always the best games. I really like the brutal ones. But you know what? We'll get into the recaps right away, because this game is over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
So, in the end, it was a double victory for Lord Tremendous. I won the first game because my opponent conceded in turn 3. God, with those failed headstrong checks for both of his unit knights, I don't blame him for a second. And then in game 2, I was able to table him in turn 6. Just barely, but I was able to do it. So I'm pretty happy with that. 2,000 points is definitely an adjustment, but as always, there is no mercy in this dojo. And honestly, my opponent was fine with it. He would have done the exact same thing to me, and I would have laughed the whole time. His dice, on the other hand, he might murder, but I could totally get behind that, and I would be his alibi in any court of law. So, like I said, going down to 2,000 points was rough. Dropping 500, I mean, it felt like cutting off one of my arms. I really miss my monsters. I really miss my Reavers. I don't know, maybe I'll drop a unit of the Knights in order to get the monster, like a Jabberwocky and a unit of Reavers back in. I don't know, but I miss them. I really miss them. The Mounted Suns are so good, but I like what I like. I really miss Blackshade too. I don't know what I'm gonna do. 2,000 points just isn't enough. The new list does work. I can't complain about the effectiveness of the list. I want my toys. I'm such a brat. In Game 1 and in Game 2, I don't think my opponent made any of his headstrong checks. Not one, which just sucks, especially in an army that kind of relies on that, and especially only needing a 3. His dice, like I said, just were not on his team at all this game, the poor bastard. His vengeance on his dice is going to be epic, though. I'm willing to bet that he has far fewer now than he did before this game, or before these games, because, yeah, they were just garbage. He's not thrilled with his knights right now. He's actually talking about doing a infantry heavy list, just all infantry Brotherhood with a whole bunch of characters backing him up. And to be honest, I remember the Brotherhood list, the first Brotherhood list I ever faced at the Lone Wolf, and his was heavy infantry with a backup of knights, and the idea of all infantry, the Brotherhood infantry of all things, terrifies me. So if he does put that together, I can't wait to face it because I want to see if my fear is justified or not. I think it would be really cool. But these, to say nothing else of them, these were great games and I really enjoyed playing. I love playing against this guy. He's a great opponent with a great sense of humor, and he's passionate. Oh, baby, is he passionate. The music that you're listening to right now, that's actually his band, so great music. And as always, I'm very much looking forward to our rematch because I don't know what he's going to throw at me next, but I have no doubt that it's going to be brutal as hell, and I cannot wait to get my teeth kicked down my throat because it's a lot of fun. But yeah, definitely looking forward to our rematch. But again, if you've made it this far, I apologize for the month-long intermission between videos. Again, I went on vacation. I was busy doing other things. I am working on finishing up a book that I've been writing for 2 years because I'm really bad at focus. But yeah, I'm almost done with that. I'm done with vacation. School's about to starting for everybody, so we're all going to get back into our routines. Life will be good, and I'll start churning these out weekly as I was before. I've got a great elf game coming up against the man that taught me how to play the game way back when fantasy was still a thing over a decade ago. So really looking forward to getting that one out. Hope you guys enjoy it. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, feel free to put them in the comments section below, and I will get back to you as quick as I can. Thanks.